Mr. President, distinguished delegates, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to be able to contribute to this important panel on the nexus between the adverse effects of hazardous and toxic wastes on one hand and the human rights on the other hand. My statement will focus specifically on the case of Somalia. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, Somalia has been a victim of hazardous toxic waste dumping since mid-1980s. According to numerous reports, including reports released by international agencies such as United Environment Programs, Greenpeace, and other international agencies, foreign companies have used Somalia as dumping ground to dispose large quantities of toxic wastes illegally. The illicit dumping of toxic waste has intensified, particularly since the 1990s. The prolonged and widespread toxic waste dumping has seriously impacted on health, livelihoods, prospect of development, and the overall human security of the affected population. In addition to the toxic waste, there has been other equally harmful and internationally driven illicit practices that were associated with the toxic waste, such as illegal, unregulated, and unreported industrial-scale illegal fishing, international arms smuggling, and since the 1990s, it has been documented, for example, that the Somali warlords have been accepting toxic waste from foreign companies in exchange for army and ammunition. Together, these factors represent the main pillars that underpin the war economy that has been taken its roots in Somalia since the 1990s. All this has contributed to the perpetuation and exacerbation of the deadly effects of the army conflict in Somalia in the last 2 decades. Among other dire consequences, this seemingly never-ending conflict has resulted hundreds of thousands of victims and millions among refugees and internally displaced persons. Therefore, the combined effects of toxic waste dumping and other illicit practices, such as international arms trafficking associated with it, have denied the affected population the enjoyment of fundamental human rights, including the right to life, the right to safe environment, healthy and safe environment, the right to food, income, and safe drinking water, as well as right to development. Unfortunately, Somalia has had no effective government for a long time. On the other hand, the international community has failed to adequately address this problem while dealing with the Somali crisis. For instance, lack of evidence of the existence of toxic waste dumping in Somalia is sometimes mentioned as the main reason for this failure. However, as my paper documents, as well as many other internationally available literature sources, there is an ample evidence of both the longer toxic waste dumping in Somalia, long-running toxic waste dumping in Somalia, and its adverse effects on the health of the population, livelihoods, and the environment. I'd like to mention 2 examples. In 1992, the then Executive Director of UNEP, Dr. Mustafa Tolba, confirmed that some European companies had been taking advantage of the ongoing political chaos and civil war in Somalia in order to dump illegally hazardous toxic waste on the country's long coast. Also, in an official statement released on the 22nd of February 2005, UNEP noted that, quote, Somalia's coastline has been used as dumping ground for other countries' nuclear and hazardous waste for many years as a result of the long civil war and thus the inability of the authorities to police shipments and handle the wastes. Likewise, after the tsunami, a Mogadishu-based Somali NGO has carried out a field survey in which survey the team had discovered 15 big sealed containers full of toxic waste washed ashore by the tsunami wave. In relation to the impact of the toxic waste dumping in Somalia on health and livelihoods, I would also like to mention a couple of examples. Again, UNEP has declared of tsunami that in Somalia there's, quote, there's evidence that hazardous waste from dam sites have contaminated groundwater. After tsunami, UNEP had also reported that people were complaining from unusual health problems, including respiratory infections, heavy dry coughing, mouth bleeding, abdominal hemorrhage, and unusual chemical skin reaction. Again, after tsunami in 2005, Dr. Gabriele Lonardi, a medical doctor working in Somalia with an international NGO by the name Intersource, was quoted also as saying, in the villages that we had visited, we had found a series of strange diseases with an unusually extremely high incidence with respect to the normal situation. Dr. Lonardi said also that he saw microcephalus and microcephalus of which the frequency is so abnormal that you cannot find them in any book. We couldn't find, said Dr. Lonardi, any logical explanation for what we saw, and we were constantly asking ourselves what's going on here. To conclude, from all the aforementioned and many other sources, it's clear that Somalia has been turned into the dumping ground of the worst toxic waste produced in the industrialized countries at the expense of the already fragile health, food security, and overall prospective for development of the affected population in Somalia. Also, the multiplier negative effect of the closely related and international driven illegal practices such as toxic waste dumping and army smuggling in Somalia on the conflict is also clear. Therefore, along the internal factors, Somalia's political and economical crisis is fueled and perpetuated by internationally driven economic and other strategic interests. In this context, according to the UN Special Representative for Somalia, Mr. Walad Abdullah, quote, piracy, illegal fishing, and the dumping of chemical wastes, toxic and possibly nuclear waste in Somalia means struggle for power by Somali warlords is flawed. Finally, to reverse this tragic trend, I would like to call upon the UN Council on Human Rights and the international community in general to make sure that interlinked problems such as toxic waste dumping, illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing, army smuggling, and all other international dimensions of the Somali crisis are properly dealt with. In particular, I'd like to make a number of recommendations, including A, an urgent country mission on the part of the Special Rapporteur on the toxic waste on Somalia. B, an in-depth and extensive field research on the nature, scale and impact of the toxic waste dumping in Somalia. C, identification, isolation and reclamation of the polluted sites. D, the adoption of effectively deterring measures against the toxic traffickers at international level. Finally, facilitation of access to the relevant information for there are communities and households that are literally living on the polluted sites without any knowledge with